Welcome to the Purposeful Living Conversation. Today is the last but one day of the year 2024. We are preparing ourselves to enter a new year, 2025. And one of the things we want to plan before we enter the 2025 is on our financial status. So the financial planning model we'll have a discussion on today is just a tool to guide us on how our net cash flow will look like every month of the coming year, so that if there are sources of inflows that you can consider, you can pay attention to different types of inflows, and you can also see how you manage your outflows. Your inflows are the sources of income to you, and your outflows are your expenditure or the things that take money out of your purse. The difference between the inflows and the outflows is your net cash. So that is your net cash position for a particular year. We also have the closing net cash, because if the net cash of January is, say, 10,000 cedis, and the net cash of February is negative 6,000 cedis, you will see positive 6,000 in January, but you will see a negative 6,000 in February. The closing balance is your total net cash at the end of February, which will be 4,000. So this presentation is going to take you through the model, how you can use it, how it can also serve as a guide for you to prepare for 2025, to build a budget for yourself, a budget for your family, a budget for your wife or your husband, to guide you in the coming year. And one other benefit of this model is that you can see different inflow options or revenue options. Okay, we have revenue from employment, revenue from business, revenue from investment, revenue from scholarship or grants. You know, if you're on a project or you are a student, we have other sources of revenue. So when you go through this model and you realize that in most of the sources of income, you are putting zero or nothing there, then it means that you don't have any expectation of getting income from those sources of income. And that can trigger a desire for you to plan and think of how you can generate revenue from the other sources of income. If you go to the expenditure side, it will show you different types of expenditure. And one of the benefits of having a budget or going through this process is that when you see the various sources of expenditure, it can prompt you on how to manage those expenditure. For example, we have personal recurring expenses. For example, your airtime on your phone, your data your internet, and various sources of recurring expenses. So when you list as many as you can remember the various personal recurring expenses, you can see the impact of the recurring expenses on your overall budget, and that can also help you to plan on how to manage the personal recurring expenses. You also have family recurring expenses. You see how you can also manage the family recurring expenses. And whoever you are, whether a man or a woman, okay, a boy or a girl, a lady or a gentleman, you may have expenditure aspiration that are in capital nature. The nature of those expenditure is that the expenditure can last, or the item of that expenditure can last for more than a year or even for a long time. And every expenditure that the item under such expenditure can last for more than a year can be captured under capital expenditure. So we have, for example, car, land, house, marriage expenses, or program expenses for a particular program of your family or yourself. We have maybe pursuing higher education like master's, PhD. So you can, or you should put in various expected capital expenditure for 2025. The reason for doing this is the model can help you to see when you can reasonably acquire that particular capital expenditure or that asset. Okay, for example, if your net cash flow at the end of March is 20,000 and you want to buy a property of 50,000, obviously you cannot buy it in March. Okay, the model can help you to see when your net cash flow can be positive and be able to acquire the property you are looking at. So that will be under the capital expenditure. Then you see employment expenses, business expenses, and investment expenses. So to start with, when you receive this model and you want to use it as a guide on your personal financial planning for 2025, your focus will be on the input sheets. So you will see various sheets. We have the guide. The guide sheet talks about how to use the model. We have the summary. The summary sheet shows the summary of your expected cash flow at the end of every month and the full year. So column E is full year, and then column G is for January, then it continues like that. Sorry, I was not sharing my screen. All right, so when you receive the model, I was not sharing my screen. Good. I want to when you receive the model, one thing to pay attention to is on the input sheets. Okay, so one second.